Hello. Hello. All right. So, I wanted to hop on today and do a boundaries and communication crash course for all of you because I keep hearing this with my clients that, tomorrow's Thanksgiving and you may be around family and friends, people you haven't seen in a long time. And sometimes shit hits the fan. So I wanted to do this. This is sort of like, I want this to be something you can listen to, like on your drive to wherever you're going. Okay. We're going to talk about 3 mindset shifts that you can make that are super empowering and necessary to then do these 3 strategies that I am going to talk about. Hey there. Welcome. Thanks for joining. So that is what we're going to get in today. So if you don't have time to watch it right now, save this, come back to this, comment, like, so you know you can come back to it and watch this again. So what typically happens, right? When you go home to for the holidays or go to parties or even see people that you haven't seen in a long time, it's almost like we like revert back to like our child selves. It's kind of weird, isn't it? You're like you see yourself saying and doing things, you're like, who even is that? I'm not that person anymore. Or maybe you just like feel the oppression of being in your childhood bedroom. Whatever it is for you, it happens to all of us. We get these like urges, we get like sucked back in. And we fall back into the same patterns and cycles that we had during those times. So the poor communication, running away or avoiding conversations, um, saying yes when we mean no. And maybe these are things you're still working on now, but it's like, especially when we get like back into old places and seeing old people again, that we get re-triggered. And again, the urges to do that is so strong, the urge to do that. Another thing that happens is that we start acting this way and we get upset. Maybe we're upset with ourselves, maybe we're upset with, drunk Aunt Jan and what she says. Maybe we're upset because Uncle Rick is just like standing too close, or maybe your dad brings up politics again and like starts a whole thing and you get upset. So then what happens when we get upset? Well, there's lots of food around, so there cues the stuffing. We overeat, overdrink because we don't want to like be in our bodies. We don't want to be in the situation. So we try anything to really avoid the situation. And then that doesn't feel good. And then we beat ourselves up like, oh, I told myself I wasn't going to drink, or wasn't going to drink that much, or I was only going to have 1 piece of pie, not half a pie. So that also had, and then we beat ourselves up for having engaged in that. Again, we can also avoid. There's a lot of avoidance behaviors that happen around this time. And then there's shopping. So maybe you dissociate from the family or dissociate from conversations by going into shopping. Again, none of those actually feel good. Okay? You're not communicating, you're not setting boundaries, you're beating yourself up. And that's what I want to get into. Like, none of that has to happen. Okay? So that's what we're going to get into. I've got 3 mindset shifts, and with each one, skills. And I do this because you need to have the right mindset to do the skill. A skill is useless if you don't have the right mindset to using it. Okay? So both of these or all of these go well together. We're going to end with how do we put it together and make boundaries. And I've got my little cue card up here behind me to walk us through all of this. So, in the meantime, if you have any questions, if you have any specific situations that you face during the holidays, please post them. Put them in the chat right now. Put them in the comments, or put them in the comments later, and I'm happy to coach you later on this. Okay, this is stuff I talk about with my clients pretty frequently, and I'll get into some more specifics here in a minute. So I'm gonna go right now because I'll set up a couple situations and we're gonna use them as I go through each one of these. So one of them, like I was saying, like, I don't know, Aunt Jan, right, asked you about your marital status. Like, why aren't you married? Right? Why are you still single? Honey, you're so cute. Why are you still single? Okay. Or why don't you have kids? Or why don't you have two kids? Or why don't you? So right, there's always something else that that person's asking you, right? The next milestone. So that's one situation that typically comes up. So we think about mindset shifts. Hey, welcome. The first one is about emotional, around this the skill of emotional maturity. How do I be more emotionally mature in these situations? And what I mean is that you may, when you go back, you may feel this emotional immaturity, right? Reacting to your emotions, being upset, almost being like toddler like. Okay, that's emotional immaturity. So, what we want to work on is being more mature. And the mindset shift here that I want you to remember is that no one can make you feel a certain way. No one can force you to feel a certain way. So when Aunt Jan is asking you, why aren't you married, or why don't you have kids, or why are you still at that job? Okay, she's not making you feel insecure. She's not making you um, feel awkward or feel bad about yourself. It's because what she's asking you is sensitive for you. It's your insecurity, which is why then you feel insecure, or you feel shame, or you feel guilt, or you feel whatever it is. Okay, because you agree with her. You're like, I don't know, Jan. I asked myself that same question. Why am I still single? Why am I still at this job? I don't know. I don't even like my job, right? Whatever it is for you. So she's not making like inputting or like feelings on you. Trust me, if I could make people feel happy, if I had that magic wand, I would be not doing these and be on a yacht somewhere in the Caribbean, right? That would be great. But we can't make people feel a certain way. So that's the mindset shift. Knowing that, the second part of that mindset shift is that you got to own it. You own your feeling. So when you're feeling insecure because she's asking, why don't you have kids? Why aren't you married? Owning, oh crap, yeah, that's my insecurity. I feel insecure. I feel shame right now, right? This has nothing to do with Jan asking. It's your stuff coming up. Okay? So then the strategy. So then what do we do? You allow the feelings. So I got the AAA and a wave here, okay? Be aware, the AAA, A, aware of the feeling, allow the feeling, act even with the feeling, okay? So be aware, oof, insecure, feeling real insecure. Allow the wave to come and go, okay? Allow the wave to come and go. You are going to have emotions. You're owning, this is mine. Maybe you just don't say anything. Maybe you just sit there and take a breath. I like to just take a breath and like feel the surge of the wave. Here it comes, here it comes. It will crest and it will go. 60 to 90 seconds, that's all a feeling lasts. 60 to 90 seconds, that's it, and it's gone. Okay? That's the strategy, to sit with it and allow it. Not try to change it, not try to change Aunt Jan, not try to do anything else, but just, ooh, that's a wave. Also, you're going to have waves of urges. Like I said, when you go back to childhood areas, or even when like the whole family gets together. So someone did write in that one of their challenges around the holidays is that they're the only single and they're the only creative in their family. And so when that's the case, right, everyone else is talking about other things or doing things, or maybe they're like, get a real job, right? Ooh, right, sit with that and allow that wave to go. And sometimes when you're in the whole family dynamic, maybe when you're just with your mom and it's fine, but it's like when dad and brother and the other person and they're all there together, then the dynamic changes. Allow the wave of an urge to act on it the way you would have acted on it. So what I mean is that maybe like your old self would have, or like your teenager self or your kid self, right? Always is like the black sheep of the family. And like you notice every time you're together with your family, you fall back into that role. Notice the urge to act in that black sheep kind of way. Be aware of it, allow it, You can act moving forward, but not act from that place. Big difference there. Okay. With my clients, I do a lot of work of how to feel feelings. It's way more complicated, not complicated. There's way more to it than this that we can do, but this is just a taste, right? Aware and allow, and then act. Okay. Allow that wave. The second skill and mindset shift here is about self-responsibility. Self-responsibility, very similar to emotional responsibility, taking emotional maturity, taking ownership of your emotions. Self-responsibility is taking responsibility of your part in the relationship. So own the 100% of your relationship. What I mean by that is that relationships are not 50-50. They are 100-100. And I'm not just talking like romantic relationships here. I mean, I'm talking about your relationship with your parents, with Aunt Jan, with your uncles and your cousins and whoever else is around. Like, you have relationships with all of them. And it's not 50-50. It's 100%, 100%. Own your 100%. Okay? If you don't like your relationship with them, you're the one who needs to change. Okay? So what even is a relationship? Just stepping back real quick. A relationship is just your thoughts about that person. So you have a relationship with your dogs. You have your thoughts about your dog. You have a relationship with the cashier because you have thoughts about the cashier at the grocery store. You have a relationship with me because you have got thoughts about me, right? And I may or may not even really know you. But you have thoughts about me, so you have a relationship. So again, own your 100 in that relationship. So that's the 100% here. You are in charge of that part of your relationship. You get to decide how you think and feel about this other person. My mindset real like shift part of this is the word of course. I love using this. Of course. Of course, Aunt Jan wants to know why you're not married, or why don't you have kids, or why don't you have a better job, why aren't you promoted, right? Maybe it's for her own reasons, maybe it's because she really cares about you, maybe because she sees the potential in you, right? Whatever it is, but of course she asks. She always drinks too much. She always asks about the personal stuff. Hello, Aunt Jan. Expect that. Don't expect her to be anything she's not. Okay? Of course. I want you to remember, of course. That's the mindset shift. Of course they're doing this. Of course. And of course I want to act like a teenager. Of course I want that, right? It's okay. So it kind of normalizes that. This lets you stop trying to control Aunt Jan. Lets you stop trying to control mom and dad and your siblings. It just lets them be who they are. Let go of that. That's not yours. This will make life 100 times easier when you just start using of course. Of course. Of course the mailman's rude. They never say hi. No, mine does. I love my mailman. And the strategy then, so right, you're saying of course, that's the mindset shift, and then you're owning that 100%. The strategy is to use I statements. So Aunt Jan asks you, well, why aren't you married? Why don't you have a better job? Why don't you have kids? Okay, I don't know, Jan. Thanks for asking. If you've got a strategy, let me know, right? If you've got some tip, something you see that I don't, let me know, right? I feel embarrassed to talk about it. I don't really know. I wish I knew. If, someone's bringing up the politics and they're like, well, this is how it is. This is how it should be. Abortion should be whatever. And you have the other opposite, other idea about it. Like, well, I feel this way because of this. And then they might try to get you to change, and you could just stay very grounded. You could allow all the feelings to come up and wash over you and take your breath and yeah, and I feel this way and you feel that way. Of course you do. Of course you do, right? so much easier. Okay. Got owning your feelings, allowing the feelings. We've got owning your thoughts and how you think about other people, and allowing the other person to be the other person with this self responsibility and allow other people to be responsible for themselves. And so now what we're going to do is put it all together for boundaries. So I teach boundaries as more of like an advanced level, advanced skill for my clients. Like I really spend a lot of time with this, and I spend a lot of time, with managing the emotions and managing how you're thinking and challenging thinking and all that good stuff. But for today's purposes, we're going to jump into the boundaries. I know you want the boundaries. How do I set and how do I keep boundaries, right? Someone asks me to do something and I just say yes. I don't want to, but I say yes. Why? Do you ever question yourself? Why do I just say yes? It's usually to avoid, it's like you want to avoid them feeling a certain way. So you just predict that if I say no, they're going to be upset and I don't want to make them upset. So I'm going to just say that yes and do the thing. So it's like you're taking responsibility for how you think they're going to think. You take responsibility for how you think they're going to feel, and you like own that. So again, that's why these first two skills are so important, and these mindset shifts are so important. No, you can't make them feel a certain way. Even if you say no, even if they are disappointed, you didn't make them disappointed. They chose to feel disappointed because of how they were thinking about the situation. Okay? So these two skills are so super important, these first two skills. So we're going to put them together, and I've got this great sentence here. That's just something I want you to really think about when you're with your family, especially if setting boundaries or people pleasing is your problem area. When you blank, then I will blank. That's it. When you blank, then I will blank. This sentence sets up the framework that allows those first two skills and first two mindsets to be played at the same time. So when you are allowing, that's that self-responsibility, you're not taking responsibility for someone else. You're allowing them to be who they are. Of course you are. Of course you're going to bring up politics. Of course you're going to bring up abortion. Of course you're going to bring up religion. Of course you're going to ask me about why I'm still single, right? So when you do any of those things, then I will, and you're taking your self-responsibility. I will what? What will you do? Guess what? You get to decide. A boundary is not a boundary without a consequence. What are you going to do? You're going to up and walk away? Are you going to change the subject? Are you just going to tell them, hey, I feel uncomfortable talking about this. I don't want to talk about this. I don't like talking about this. Can we talk about something else? Hey, then I will suggest we play a game. Bring a card game. Bring something to play with, right? Change the subject. Then I will go for a short walk. What are you going to do? What's available? Now is the time to think about it. Again, I hope you're like driving over the river and through the woods to get to wherever you're going, and you're listening to this and you have a moment to think about, how do I want to handle it? Look, people are creatures of habits. Of course, your dad's going to bring up politics. Of course, your mom might criticize your clothes. Of course, Aunt Jan drinks too much and asks personal questions. Then I will what? What are you going to do? This is the power. This is your power. Don't give that away. Okay? Questions? Let me know. Again, this is like crash course style, right? This is just down in the nitty gritty. What do I got to do? There's so much more behind all of this to learn, to practice, to grow from, okay? And again, if you go back home and you have those urges to just say yes to everything or to be that person that you don't feel like you are anymore, of course you do. It's okay. And that doesn't mean like you have to be that person, that version of you. You are still growing and you are evolving. Okay? And guess what? So are other people in your life. Maybe they're not growing and evolving the same way you are. Okay? Or maybe they're not. Maybe they aren't at all. And that's okay too. That's their right. So you have the right to grow and change and be different, and they have the right to stay the same. Okay? So the mindset shifts, right? Of emotional maturity, owning your emotions. No one can make you feel any kind of way. Allow them to be there. It's okay. 60 to 90 seconds, allow the waves to go. There's a million and one like coping skills out there of how to cope with emotions, but really just sitting and allowing the wave to be there. Allow the urge of like toddlerism or whatever it is to come up and just not act on it. If you have an urge to stuff your face or take a shot, right? And you're like, oh, hold on, I told myself I wasn't going to do that. Go for a lap. Take a lap and come back and see if you still want to do it. Give yourself that space. Self responsibility, owning you're 100% of the relationship. Remember, the way you think about someone is your relationship with them. If you want better relationships with these people, and that's an if, you get to decide. You don't have to have better relationships. It could just be let's get through dinner. But I believe the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our life. So why wouldn't you want to work on these relationships? Especially if it's people you're going to be seeing. Maybe it's not everyone at the party, but maybe there are a few people that you're like, yes, let's talk, let's dive in, okay? I want more from this relationship. And be 100% willing to be uncomfortable. And then use those I statements. I am, I hear you saying, right? Keep it I focused. And don't dress up the I statement as, I feel like you're being a jerk right now. I had a client do that. And I was like, oh, that's not quite an I statement. That turns into a you statement very quickly. It's an I or a you statement dressed up as an I statement. And then putting them together, right? A boundaries, this more advanced level of you're owning your emotions and you're not trying to manipulate other people to be or do anything different. So a boundary, a true boundary, doesn't require anyone to do anything differently. So when you just allow them to be you, of course, then I will what? Decide ahead of time how you want to show up. Decide ahead of time what's and a boundary is what's okay and what's not okay. When something's not okay, I mean, is it okay that Aunt Jan asks if you're married or not? Like, if you think about it, it's kind of like a benign question, right? It doesn't have to be this big emotional thing. So, is it okay if she asks you or not? And maybe your boundary is when you sit down with her, you're like, okay, Aunt Jan, I'm not going to talk about my relationships. Let's talk about, I will initiate a conversation about something else. Yeah. All right. Well, I wanted to keep this around a half hour, so we're right on time. Let me know. Again, put in the comments any questions you have. I will be online and I'll be happy to answer any questions, anything that comes up for you specifically. Hey, how would you handle this situations? Do you have any yeah buts? Like this makes sense, but what about this? I want to hear it because other people are going to have those questions too. All right. Give it this a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all very soon. One more thing is that I am available for individual coaching, so I would love to coach all of you one-on-one. Oops. I would love to coach all of you one-on-one. So I do have some spots available, and I have a link to get on my Calendly to see one-on-one. We can have a talk, a clarity call, get super clear what's keeping you stuck, okay, and super clear on how to get to where you want to be in your relationships. I love helping people create relationships that feel like home, that feel really safe and feel really good. Those deep connections, okay? So, again, it was nice to meet you. Nice to see you all. Take care. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Drive safe. And I will see you all next time. Bye bye.